You didn't start.
Kadosh Boker Or Masechet Batra Daf Tzadikalef Amud Aleph. This is Daf Yomi. We are starting from Tanu Rabbanan. We just said we learned in a Braita en mistakrim be'eretz Yisrael b'dvarim sheish b'hem chayim nefesh. So you're not allowed to make mischar out of things which have chayim nefesh, which means things which are the basic necessities. We're not going to come and start making profits on them. Kigon, for example, yenot shmanim usatot, whether it's going to be wine, oils, and fine flowers. Amru alav Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. They said Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah shem mistaker b'yayin v'shemen v'Yisrael that he was. So he says biyayin savarla. He used to hold like Rabbi Yehuda. That Rabbi Yehuda came and he said that the machzor, right, of yain, it actually helps out. Why? Because the less wine that it is, right, the less people that they go to the hilulot, they start drinking, and then they're here in shachrit the next mornings, right? So therefore, it's actually better. So it's better that you come, you start picking up the prices, start making thing, because if not, right, we see it firsthand, right? It's not something far off. Beshemen, what is shemen? The oils. He says, he says in the place of there was always oil. It was shemen zayit, and therefore it was always sold. So therefore, if he's going to be mistakem michirato, we're not going to suspect that it's going to come and start now picking up prices or doing all these things. It's okay. Fine. Next. You're not going to be mistaker bebetzim. So says the Gemara, Amar Mor Barabmari, says more Mari, he says, Pligi bar Rav Shmuel. Chadama, one of them says, Al Chadtre, which means you cannot come the price of 1 to 2. It's incredible. Sometimes, you come, you want to buy eggs. Sometimes you could have, right, and I'm not talking about the more expensive stores that we know around here. Right? We're talking about even a cheaper store, right? Walmart or whatever it is. And sometimes you could come and you could get for $3, $4, and all of a sudden it becomes 5, 6, and you're like, hey, what's going on? And yeah, no, that's for sure. Yeah, he says, right, V'chadamar tagal tagara. He comes and he says tagar le tagara. What does that mean? One of them says that the tagar that is buying the beitzim, right, and he's selling it, he's not allowed to come and do it again, which means he cannot be marviach an extra time, which means that you cannot get double the price, which that's what actually some of them do. Meaning it could be that the eggs cost $1 for the dozen or whatever it is, and now these guys are coming and they're already making their dollar, so they're going to sell to you for $2, and then the store is going to put it for $3, and by the time it comes down to it, you're paying triple or 4 times the amount of the real product. Right, and this, by the way, you see many times. Right, a can of soda. Right, you come and you buy a can of soda. Again, you're paying, right, the store, which means that somebody already made money there. Right, the store made money, right, and the Coca-Cola made money. Yeah, and then you're buying it and you're taking it per can. How much is that? Now, when you come to a store and they're selling it for 4 times the amount, you're like, hey, well, look how many hands and look how much money are being made in between. So this is talking about the eggs, which is again the basic staples. Okay. $75. Says like this, yeah. He says, Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in a Braita, Matri'in al frakmatia. We're going to scream betfilah to do the frakmatia sheuzla v'afilu b'Shabbat, that it went very, very cheap, and even on Shabbat, right? That means mamash. That means Shabbat is the time of simcha. But here the rabbis came and they said you're allowed to be matri'in. It's okay. Matri'in doesn't really mean the shofar or another shofar. Basically, it just means that you're allowed to come, right? And you're allowed to, right, pray about it. So he says, like Gon, for example, says Rabbi Yochanan, for example, could be shtam bevavel yain v'shem beretz Yisrael. Amar Rav Yosef, says Rav Yosef, vehu dezal vekam asara beshita. That's only if it's going to be that it was the price drop went from 10 to 6. When it takes such a hit, that's when you're allowed to come and you're allowed to cry out on Shabbat. Understand? Close the door, please. Yeah? You're allowed to cry out on Shabbat. Okay? So he says now like this. We learned in the Braita. En yotzin meretz Yisrael to chutz haaretz, ela in ken amdu satayim besela. Unless it goes the price of 2 seahs for 1 selah. So Amar Rabbi Shimon, which that's double the regular price. So Amar Rabbi Shimon, ematai, when is this that you're allowed to go to chutz haaretz? Bizman sheno motze likach, but you can't buy. But if you could buy in Eretz Yisrael, afilu asara seah, but even if you're going to get 10, right? The seah in a selah, 1 seah, not satayim. Satayim is 2. There's even 1 seah for a selah. Lo yitzeh, don't go out. Meaning, as long as you do have the food there in Israel, even if it's going to become double, you still don't go out. Elmaleh, machlon v'chilyon. You have Elmaleh and his 2 children, machlon v'chilyon. Obviously, we know this from Ruth. Gedolei ador ayu, parnasei ador ayu. They were gedolei ador and parnasei ador. So why were they punished? שיצאו מארץ ישראל לחוץ לארץ, they went out. שנאמר בזה פסוק, ותלכנה שתיהם, אבונו בדלכם, ותהום כל העיר עליהם, ותאמרנו, זו נעמי? מהי זו נעמי? What do you mean זו נעמי? אמר רבי יצחק, אמרו, they said, חזיתם נעמי שיצאת מארץ ישראל לחוץ לארץ, מה עלתה לה? Did you see the end? Meaning they went out. You see what their end was? Their end was, think about it. Elimelech died. Machlon died. Chilion died. Look what's going on. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, says Rabbi Yitzchak, Oto Yom Sheba Ruth Moaviyah, that day that Ruth Moaviyah came with Naomi to Eretz Yisrael, Meta Ishtol Shel Boaz. The wife of Boaz died. Okay? So this is a very big Musar scale, by the way. To see how HaKadosh Baruch Hu does everything exactly. Boaz was married. So therefore, the same day that she walks into the city, the wife dies. That's what it says. Right? Before the person already dies, the memane al beto, which means one that's going to switch him, is already there. Meaning there's already a tachlif, there's already somebody that's going to come and is going to change him. Right? 1 second. Right? So he comes and he says, right? Amar Rabba Baravuna, Amar Rav. Says Rabba Baravuna, Amar Rav. Right? Vayishpot acharav et Yisrael ivtzan mi ben lechem. Ivtzan ze Boaz. He comes and he says, Ivtzan, right? Ze Boaz. Ma'ik mashmalan. Says the Gemara, Ma'ik mashmalan. What is that to come and teach us? Right? So he says, Ki idach Rabba Baravuna. The Amar Baravuna Amar Rav, me'ave esrim ishtaot asa Boaz lebanav. Do you know that Boaz made 120 parties for his 60 children? Shneimar vahilo shloshim banim u'shloshim banot. He had 30 boys and 30 girls. Right? Shilach hachutza. He went and he got them married. U'shloshim banot eviu levanav. Right? Min hachutz. And he got the girls. Meaning he married off his girls and he brought in the girls for the boys, for his boys. He says, v'yishpot Yisrael sheva shanim, was a judge. So in every single one of his children, he made 2 different parties. One of them was Seudat Erusim bevet Aviv, right? Ve'echad bevet Chamiv, and one of them Seudat Niswin. Meaning he basically paid for also the engagement and also the wedding. But he never came and he never invited Manoach, because Manoach didn't have boys, didn't have children. But then afterwards he had Shimshon HaGibor. Okay, so therefore he comes and he says, Amar Kudna Akara. He went and he said, this preda akara b'may parali. Right? What's he going to pay me? Right? Why? If he doesn't have any children, right, he's not going to invite me back. Meaning, he's doing a simple chashbon. If I'm going to invite him, well, 1 second, he cannot invite me for anything. So if he cannot invite me for anything, so Tana v'kula metu b'chayav. So all of the boys died in his lifetime. That's what it says. B'chayach, right? Dialat shitin. If in your lifetime you had 60 children, shitin lamalich, what does it help to have 60 children if they all died in your lifetime? Ikafal ve'olid chad, have 1 child, the mishitin zariz, right? That's going to be zariz more than all the other 60, because that's exactly what happened, right? Because from Boaz and Ruth, they had Yishai, and Yishai had David, right? So therefore, right, from 1 child, that's all that you really need. Meaning you don't need all the other things. You just need the one that you're actually going to continue having. So obviously, right, he's saying, what does it help having 60 children? Okay? The siman, the mnemonic is in brackets. It says, Melech Avraham 10 shanim, right, sheniftar nitnasa levado. Okay. Says the first one. Amar Rav Chana barava, Amar Rav. Says Rav Chana barava, the name of the Rav. Elimelech ve Salmon, uploni almoni, va'avi Naomi, kulam b'nei Nachshon ben Aminadav v'hem. Do you know, right, that all these people that we just mentioned now, yeah, it says over here, Nachshon ben Aminadav was the Nasi of Shevet Yehuda when they came out of Mitzrayim. So Salmon was the father of Boaz, and Ploni Almoni was the family member that he didn't want to do the Yibum to Ruth, and therefore that helped Boaz, and he was able to get married to her. So therefore, Salmon, right, which is the father of Boaz, Ploni Almoni, Vavi Naomi, and the father of Naomi, they were all children of Nachshon ben Aminadav. Okay, so says the Gemara. My comment, what does it come to teach you? Even if a person has zechut avot, it doesn't help him if he goes from Israel to the land of Chutz La'aretz. Meaning here, think about it. Nachshon ben Aminadav, who was the one that jumped into the Kriyat Suf? They went. It doesn't help. It doesn't help, and therefore that's what he's coming to teach us. Yeah. Now he says, obviously, he comes and he says, yes. Well, yeah. He says Elimelech was the son of Nachshon. Machlon ve'Kilion was the grandchildren of Nachshon, right? Whether it's mitzad the father or the mitzad the mother. That's the Maharsha. Because it says Nachshon ben Aminadav was a Nasi, right? And he was a Chassid, and he was the first one that went into the sea. But it says here, so Elimelech was also the son of Nachshon and also the father of Naomi. Okay, which means that he got married to his niece. correct? Yeah. He got married to his niece. So he comes here and he says like this. Ve'amar Rabbi Ama, ve'amar Chana bar Rava amar Rav, says Chana bar Rava in the name of Rav, Imed Avraham, who is the mother of Avraham Avinu, Amatlai, or Amtelai, depends how you say it, right? Bat Karnevo, right? That's the mother of Avraham Avinu. Imed Aman, who's the mother of Haman? Remember that Amatlai Bet Karnevo is a very, very big segula. Many times you say it, whether it's going to be 17 times or however many times, and it's a segula for chen, it's a segula for many different things, for grace and other things as well. Okay, this is the Gemara to remember it. The mother of Avraham Avinu, right? Baba Batra, Sadiq Aleph, Amud Aleph, 91. Okay, so he says, right? Ime de Aman, yeah, the mother of Haman. He says is Amatlai bat or Revti. So it's also Amatlai or Amtlai, but it's the first one, right? No. Abraham's mom, right? David's mother was different. Yeah, the simanach. Now, what's a siman to remember, right? Whether it's part karnevo or bat orevti. So he says simanech. The siman is that orevti is an orev. An orev, right, is the raven, the female. That is an of tameh. Okay, and that's the mother of a Haman Rasha, an of tameh. Karnevu is milashon karim or kvasim. It's from the sheep, and therefore that's a be'ema teorah. So therefore, that is the mother of Avraham, right? Avinu. Okay, fine. Now we're going to say the mother of David. The mother of David Amelech, Nitzevet bat Adel. Yeah, what does that mean? Nitzevet bat Adael, right? Which means that this is the mother of, right, of David Amelech. Somebody actually asked me about the name Adael. So here you have it. It's the grandmother of David Amelech. Yeah, it's Nitzevet is the mother. Nitzevet bat Adael. Imed Shimshon, the mother of Shimshon, because we just spoke about Manoach, but we didn't say about the mother of Shimshon, right? So Manoach was the father. Huh? Yeah, that I never heard of the but if you do have one, let me know afterwards. Yeah, so you show it to me afterwards. It says here Tzlel Poni, or Tzlel Ponit, all depends, right? So here he says, right, it actually says Manoach was Madam Vishto Ita Miuda. So Manoach was from Dan, and the wife was from Yehuda. So it comes out that Shimshon came from Dan and Yehuda. Okay? And it says, right? They got mixed marriage. Yes. Well, they were already marrying between themselves. Yes. Between Shevet. And the sister of Shimshon, the name was Nashian. Okay? The Mainaf Kamina says the Gemara, why do I need all these names? Yeah, Chazak Baruch. Okay, fine. So you have the mother of Avraham Avinu, the mother of Haman Rasha. You have the mother of David Amelech, the mother of Shimshon, the sister of Shimshon. What do I need it? He says Li'tshuvat minim. He says for the tshuva of the minim, right? Because the minim used to come, right, and they used to say, why is it's not written, right? We don't have the mothers of Yitzchak and Yaakov. So Yitzchak and Yaakov, it's known. Avraham, we don't have the mother, right? So where's the mother of Avraham? So therefore, they're their mothers, right? Everyone knew about it. So who was the mother of David? So again, all these things was in order to give Pitchon Peh that kilu that now look, we do have a Masoret. These are the names of the mothers, right? And these are who they are. What? The Amar Rav Chanan bar Rav, right? It says Rav Chanan bar Rava. He comes and he says, right, as follows. He says like this. Like this. He says like this. He says, Eser Shanin Nechbash Avraham Avinu. Do you know that Avraham Avinu was in jail, if you want to call it, for 10 years? Right? This is through Nimrod. Okay? So he comes and he says, Shalosh Bechuta, 3 in Kuta, Vesheva Bekardu, and 7 years in Kardu. Okay, these are different cities. So he comes and he says, right, he taught the opposite, 3 years in Kardu and 7 years in Bechuta. So Amar al-Chasta says al-Chasta, Ivra ze'ira dechuta, right, ze'ur kasdim. Do you know the place which is called Ivra ze'ira, right, of dechuta, which is in Kuta? That is Ur Kasdim, which is brought down in the Torah, because that's where he was saved from the fiery furnace. Amar Rav Chana bar Rava, says Rav Chana bar Rava, Amar Rav, באותו יום שנפטר אברהם אבינו מהעולם, עמדו כל גדולי אומות העולם בשורה, right, everyone came like אבלים ואמרו, and they said, אוי לו לעולם שעבד מנהיגו. Right, Tzadik Aleph Amud Bet. Yeah, he says, whoa, right? Yeah. He says like this. So he says, woe to the world that you lost its manhig, woe to the sfina, right? To the boat, right? That you lost the kabernata, which is basically the head sailor, right? You're talking about the captain. Okay, asapan. Fine. Right? It says, Vaminase lechol rosh. You know, we say this, right? Every single day in Vayivarech David. Right? We say, Lecha Hashem Amlecha, Vaminase lechol rosh. So this is a pasuk in Divrei Yamim. Amar Ochan Amar Rav Amar Rav, afilu resh garguta mishmaya mukmila. Do you know, even the one which is on top and in charge of the burot hamayim. So Mamash, he's in charge of all the burot hamayim, of all the pits and putting the waters, you know. It comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah? Afilu resh garguta mishmaya mukmila. So Amar Ochia bar Avi Naman Yishua ben Korcha, Chas v'Shalom, Shafilu matzu subin lo yatzu. Right? He says, I don't understand. Even the mots which comes out of the kemach, right? They would not come out to chutzaret. So if still they went and there was no brera acheret, so that's obviously that's one thing, which means that Elmaleh ma'achlon v'chidyon, they went and they did avera because at the end of the day, right? He says what? They went out. So then why did they get punished? Meaning, if you're going to tell me right now, right, the first opinion is that they left Eretz Israel and there was still food. So 1 second. So he says it's not true, because even if there was going to be just subin, which is bran, they wouldn't have gone out. So then why were they punished then? So he says, meaning really, be'emet, they did not have. Right? There was nothing left. So there was nothing left. They were permitted to go out. So they were permitted to go out. So why didn't they go out? Like, why did they get punished that they went out? So he says, because they should have asked for rachamim, and they didn't. And the fact they didn't ask for rachamim on thing, so that's why they were punished. Ne'emar, b'za'akech yatzilucha kibutzai. What does that mean? When you're going to scream out, right, the amun am, then you're going to be saved. So from here we learn that when there's going to be a hunger or famine, it's a chovan menigim, everybody to come together and to pray, right? L'rachamei Hashem. Yeah. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yochanan Lo shanu ela ma'ot bezol. This the Chachamim, when they're talking about this, it's only going to be when the ma'ot are zol. What does that mean? That there's still money. Uperot biyoker, and the fruits are going to be expensive. Okay, aval ma'ot biyoker. But if there's going to be the people are going to be aniim and they don't have money, inflation. Yeah, right? Inflation. Afilu amdu arba sein besela yotzin. Even if it's going to be 4 sein for 1 sela, right, which is the regular price, you're allowed to go out, right? Why? Because at the end of the day, that's it. The second that becomes such an inflation like that, so you're allowed to go. Yeah. Yeah. Fine. Siman. Okay. Brackets. Siman sela poel. Charuva talia amrim. Another mnemonic. So let's start. Okay. Again, in the footnote, each time he keeps on telling you how is the mnemonic, right? But fine. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yochanan. Nehirna. Yeah, I remember. Kadhavu kaimin arba sein b'sela. I remember when it was 4 sein for 1 sela. Avonefisha nechfiche kafan. Right, and still people were bloated in Tveria, meaning there was so much hunger, their stomachs, right, were bloated, were nafuach, which means mamash, they were bloated. Midelet isar, because there was not enough money. Meaning, what does it help to have the regular price of the food if the money is too expensive? Meaning so it doesn't help them. It means even if you're gonna have this is the regular price, it doesn't help. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan says of Yochanan. Here I remember, right? Kadlavi mitagin poalaya lemidnach karta. I remember when the poalim were not, renting themselves out. Mereach pita maitzim, right? Because they were dying from the reach of the pot that they were carrying, right? Meaning the pot of Tveria was so good, people were just like fainting because of their smell, right? And the Ruach Ma'aravit was mamash bringing that smell right to the east of the city, and it was killing them. Right? Because basically it was an incredible smell, and they had hunger, and they weren't able to eat because they didn't have the money. So people were not renting themselves out, because if not, they would just die. So therefore, they just prefer not to rent themselves out. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan says of Yochanan, I remember also that right, when the yeled would come and take a charuv, a carob to eat it, there would come dvash that would come onto his hands, which means once the fruits were so good and tender, mamash, you would open up a carob and it would be like mamash like a honey, which would be coming down. So he comes and coming out. Yes. V'amar Rabbi Elazar, says Rabbi Elazar, Nihirna, I remember also Kadhavi Natil Urva Bisra, when the Orev would come and take a piece of meat and go flying, right? They would come on Rosh HaKotel, ונגיד חוטא דמישחה מרש שורה ועד לערה, right? And they would have a pass of shuman of basically mamash coming down from the top of the kotel until the ground, which means that mamash the tzon would come and they would have all this shemen tov and everything. And mamash they had it all the time, right? They would just pick them up and just like fall, whether it's going to be honey or incredible things. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, here and I remember also, right? When they used to play, right, little boys and girls together in the shuk, right, with little children, right? Right? He says they were 16 or 17. They weren't sinning. Meaning, we think that how are you going to have a story of children playing and they're not going to sin? It's okay. They're right. Every generation has to go down. Once upon a time, maybe it would be like a 9-year-old, 10-year-old. Nowadays, it's even 6 years old already. It starts problems, right? So here he's saying, Mamash, they were 16 and 17, and you would have boys and girls playing together, and they would never sin. I mean, they didn't have the thought of sin. So imagine what the concept was. Yeah? So he says over here, because again, it was a time of ruchaniut. So there was such a ruchaniut that bichlal, it was like something else. So he says, Rabbi Yochanan, here I remember, when they used to say in the Bet Midrash, the model lehon nafal bidehon, right? Somebody that was mitratzeh to do avodah zarah, right? And that they say the modeli divrehem, he used to fall in their hands. And therefore the person would come and he would, go very, very strongly against them, right? Okay, right, okay, fine. There's another explanation there in the footnote. Right, he says, but the mitrachetz alehon, diled dilehon. But mishe boteach bahem, he belongs to them. He's going to be shelaim. Why? He put his emunah in them. That's it. He's with them. Ketiv, it's written, machlon v'chilyon. It's written, uchtiv, yoash v'saraf. So one second, what was their name? Was their name machlon v'chilyon? Or was their name yoash v'saraf? So Rav Shmuel Chadamar, one of them says, machlon v'chilyon shaman. So why were they called yoash v'saraf? Yoash and itiashu min ha-geula. Right? They went and they took their eyes off the geula. They gave up hope on the geula. Saraf shenitchayvu tzrefa lamakom. They were obligated tzrefa to Hashem. Chadamar, one of them says the opposite. Yoash v'saraf was their names, right? Their real names. So why were they called machlon v'chilyon? Machlon shasu gufo chulin. That he went and he made his body into chulin because he went out of Eretz Yisrael. V'chilyon shenitchayvu klaya lamakom. Because he was obligated to be destroyed from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So again, it's they're trying to find out what the names, right, are actually meaning over here. So Tanya, we learned in the Braita, Kemanda Amar, according to the Manda Amar, that really be a man machlon v'chilyon sheman. Tanya, we learned in the Braita, what does it mean in Pasuk? V'yokim v'anshech chozeva, yoash v'tzarav asher ba'alul moav v'yeshuvu lachem, v'advarim atikim. So he says, V'yokim is Yoshua. Shekim shavua l'anshei Givon, that he made a shavua to the people of Givon. Remember, Givon was the city in Eretz Canaan. So after Yoshua and Israel, they passed the Jordan River, right? They went and they conquered these two cities, right? Yericho and the Ai. So they were very, very afraid. So therefore they went and they said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told them, you have to get rid of all of them. The Givonim came and they went and they were, they tricked Yoshua and Ziknei Israel, that they made a treaty with them, right? And then what happened was, in order to stop the Chilul Hashem, they kept the treaty, meaning they didn't kill them, right? Meaning technically they should have killed them. But they went, they tricked them, they got a treaty. So once you make a peace treaty, to go against your words is not, you understand, it's not matim. It's a chilul Hashem. So what did he do? They just left them alive. So that they tricked Yoshua. Right? Yoash v'saraf is machlon v'chilyon. So why were they called Yoash v'saraf? So therefore, this is a proof from the Braita that the real names was machlon v'chilyon, and Yoash v'saraf was the play on words that we added to their names. Asher ba'alul Moav. What does it mean ba'alul Moav? They got married to women of Moab. That's what it means. Yeah, because remember, they were from Moab, right? Ruth and Orpah. Right? Yashuvi lachem, Ruth Moaviyah. Sheshavan mizbev ve'lechem Yudah. She went and she connected herself to Belechem Yudah. Advarim atikim, and these words are very old. Advarim alalu atik yomayah. It's atik yomayim, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu Amran. He was the one that said it, and he commanded it, which means it came out from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Machlon v'chilyon would go out of Eretz Yisrael in order that they should have this marriage to Ruth and what's it called? And Orpa, in order that afterwards Boaz would be able to get married to Ruth, and then obviously you would have the entire Shushelet of Bet David. Yichtiv, it says, Matzati David Avdi. What does it mean? Uchtiv, Shete Benotecha Nimtzaot. It's a Gzerat Shava of Shte Banecha Nimtzaot, the two daughters which are found here in Sodom, and with the one which is Matzati, so it's a Gzerat Shava that he found, right, Ruth. And he found her, when he found her, that really bemet, he had to make it in a certain fashion in order that Machlon v'Chirion would go outside in order to get married to the daughters of Moab, right? They were princesses, right? In order that afterwards they would come, right? Yes, exactly. Yeah. Hema yotzerim v'yosheve neta'im ugdera. It's another pasuk. He says over here like this. Hema yotzrim. Right? He says like this. Im hamelech v'mlachto yashavu sham. So the writer says, Hema yotzrim. What is Hema yotzrim? Elu b'nei Yonadav ben Rechav. These are the children of Yonadav ben Rechav. Shenatzru shavuat avim. That they kept their father's shavuah. Okay, Yonadav ben Rechav was the father of the mishpacha. He was from the Bnei Banav of Yitro, Chutei Moshe. So he's actually brought down by Yehu, Melech Yisrael, right? That was 300 years before Chuban by Bet HaMikdash HaRishon. So therefore, what happened was that the Ben Rechavim was known in Yudan and Yerushalayim. So when Yirmiyahu wanted to give them wine, like Pitzivu Hashem, they didn't want to drink wine because their father went and told them that they should not come in to plant, whether it's going to be the vineyards or the fields, right? To live simple lives. And therefore they kept their father's, how do you call this? Their father's will, as if to say. Okay? So that's the first one, right? Ben Yonadav ben Rechav, Shenatzru. Right, Natsar, right, is a Notzer Chesel Alafim, it's Shomer, right, is to watch over, Shvuat Aviyam. Yosheve Netayim, it's Shlomo, Shedome LaNetiyah b'malchuto. He's compared to a Netiyah, right, to a tree, to an Ilan Tzayid in his Malchut, because it became strengthened and strengthened. Ugdera, who's Gedera? Sanhedrin, Shegadru Pirzoten Shel Yisrael, that they came and they make a Gader. They make a fence against all the Pirtzot, against all the breaches of Israel. Im hamelech b'mlachto yashvu sham, is Ruth Moaviyah. Why? Shirata b'malchut Shlomo ben beno shel ben benah. She was able to see the kingdom of Shlomo Melech, which was ben beno shel ben benah. Okay, that makes sense, no? Because Ruth had Oved, right, and he was the father of Yishai, and he was the father of David, right, and then, right, you had David was the father of Shlomo. So therefore, Shlomo was Ben Bino Shel Yishai, right? Correct? It's the grandson of Yishai. One more time. Who's Shlomo's father? David. Who's Shlomo's the grandfather? Yishai. Now, and that was Ben Benah, and that was her grandson. Meaning Yishai was the grandson of Ruth. Okay? So it's not even a nin. We're going further. Huh? No. Anechet shel anechet. Yeah? Anechet shel anechet. It's a nechet shel anechet. One more time. You guys are not. One more time. Right? Ben Beno. That's already nechet. When you say Ben Bincha, it's a nechet. Ben Beno shel Shlomo. היה Ben Beno shel עוד פעם. יש לך שלמה. הוא Ben Beno shel יש לך דוד שזה ישי. אוקיי? ואז זה Ben בנה. ישי זה הנכד שלה. לא. עוד פעם. יש לך בועז ורות. היה להם עובד. ואז ישי, ואז, right? זאת אומרת, הנכד ועוד נכד. זה שלמה, בדיוק. So שלמה, so one more time. David is the father. Yishai is the grandfather. Oved is the great grandfather. And Ruth is the great grandmother.
Said that right from the beginning.
Yeah, okay, fine.
He said he admitted he's tired.
Okay. We learned in a Braita. Yeah. Yeah, he says, yeah. Yeah, he says this. He says we learned in a Braita, right? If you're actually in the Gemara, I don't understand. You could be called. The Esha Torah is so strong, it doesn't make sense. But okay, fine. It could be people are sleeping. What does it mean now? He says over here, right? When it says uzratem that you're going to plant on the 8th year, and then you're going to eat from the tevuah yashan until the 9th year. It says below salminton. From here we learn that the tevuah of the 6th year is going to be without salminton. What is below salminton? My below salminton. Rav Nachman Amar below retzinta. It doesn't have the tola'at, which causes the grains to go bad. Meaning there's going to be tolaim and bugs and all these things that they cause the tevuah to go bad. Rav Shashat Amar, Rav Shashat below shadifa, without shidafon. which means that it doesn't get hot too much and then mitkalkelet. You understand? Meaning if people get too hot, they're mitkalkelim. So you always have to keep them cool. You understand? So we're not mitkalkel. You understand? People have to understand. Daf Yomi is all the time. You have to see it in the daf. It's there. Everything's in the daf. Yeah. So Tanya Kavate the Rav Sheshat. We learned the Braita according to Rav Sheshat. Tanya Kavate the Rav Nachman, but we also learned the Braita according to Rav Nachman. Tanya Kavate the Rav Nachman Machaltem Yashan. Yachol. I would have thought to say Yu Yisem Etzapim Lechadash. So they were looking forward to the new crop. Mipnei Yashan Shekala, because it already went bad. It would come on its own, which means that it was still there. He was still able to eat it. The Tanya Kavate the Rav Sheshat, and we also learned according to Rav Sheshat. Because it became bad because of the shidafon. It's going to come on its own, and therefore it was not actually bad. Tanu Rabbanan. Right, we learned in the Braita. Anything which is older than its friend, it's even better than its friend. Right? Wine, aged wine is better. Meat, aged meat is better than, right? But that's only things which is, for example, chita, yain, right? Whether it's the grains, right? Wine. How do we know things which do not, like, for example, fruits, right? Or other types of grains? How do we know them? In anything, which in all these types of perot. You had everything of the old produce and you also had the new produce. How are we going to take out the yashan because of the chadash? That's what it's saying. Like we're going to be forced to take it out. Right? We still have the good, and it's good, still old, but it's still perfect. There's no problem with it. Right? All the things which are going to be yashan, they're even better. Anything which is older is going to be better. Except for tmarim v'shechar and daging tarim, meaning small fish, or tmarim shechar, right? The date beer and all these things. That's not good if it's going to be too thing. Right? It could be, but those are salted and everything, but it doesn't have to be a thing.